What's up, you guys? It's me, Brianna Watson, back again. Excuse me for a second. I just want to inform you that I'm going to be having a great time reading this story to you. It literally is a great story, and the back is completely wet. Because I was having ice cream right here. Anyways, so I'm going to have fun reading this book to you. It's still wet. Fudge. I'm having a great time reading this book to you. I finished it today. I started on another Christmas story, Her Christmas Protector, by Jerry Corto. Sorry if I butchered her name. I haven't gotten very far in it. But anyways, back to this. I will be reading this story to you some more. I really do enjoy it. It's such a good book. Like, I fell in love with it. So, on to chapter 2, and I'll be keeping a Christmas playlist, and I will probably have the link down in the description below of my Christmas videos, because, yay, Christmas! It's literally my favorite time of the year. Anyways, back to this, on to chapter 2. I really do hope you guys are enjoying this. Okay. So, the town of Fool's Gold. Excuse me. I have to have that on. Okay. The town of Fool's Gold was something out of a cheesy, made-for-TV movie, Gabriel thought as he followed Noel's directions. There were plenty of people on the streets, and every single one he passed greeted him in some way. Women walked arm in arm, the sidewalks were shoveled and sanded, and all the storefronts were decorated with turkeys or leaves, or painted with some Thanksgiving tableau. Talk about surreal. He half expected dancing lampposts or singing forest creatures to escort him. The last time he'd seen his brother, Gideon had been malnourished, bruised, and mentally shattered. His brother had been taken prisoner by the Taliban and kept for nearly 2 years. He'd been in a cell with several other Americans, all of whom had been tortured regularly. Gideon had been the only one to survive. Gabriel had visited him in the military hospital where he'd recuperated before being discharged. From there, Gideon had gone to Bali, where he worked on getting himself back to whatever degree of normal was going to be. Gabriel couldn't reconcile the soldier his brother had been, or the broken prisoner, with anyone who would live in a town like this. What the hell had happened? He knew he wouldn't get an answer until he got the chance to talk to his brother himself. In the meantime, he kept moving until he found the office he was looking for. He ignored the jabbing pain in his hand and how tired he was. He went inside and walked down the hall to the office marked Fool's Gold Department of Festivals. He knocked once and entered. The room itself was large, with a big desk, chairs for visitors, and colored posters of more fantasy events in the freakish town. But what really caught his attention was the tall redhead who stood when she saw him. She was beautiful. No, that wasn't the right word for it. She was stunning. With green eyes and pale skin. A sweater showed off perfect curves. Her eyes widened as she hurried around the desk. Gabriel, you're here. Noel just called and told me you had brought her into town. I appreciate you helping my friend. She's not a very good driver in the snow. I've done my best to explain the theory of staying in control on a slick road, but she seems to learn best by doing. I suppose winter driving is a skill more easily mastered through practice. She paused, put her hands on his upper arms. I see so much of your brother in you. There are variations as well. How interesting. I have no siblings, so all my observations about the subtle differences and similarities within a biological unit have been with friends or people I work with. Noelle had warned him Felicia was intelligent. She obviously had him kidding. Smart and beautiful, she thought as she stared at him. Funny how despite that, the smile that had most affected him today had been Noelle's. Her mouth trembled slightly as the smile faded. I feel compelled to hug you, she admitted. Is it too soon? Go for it, he said, holding open his arms. Felicia stepped into his embrace. She hung on with more strength than he would have guessed. He hugged her back, thinking Gideon would have his hands full with this one. She stepped back and motioned toward one of the chairs by her desk. How was your trip? Are you tired? She said. She sat back down. I'm okay. She stared at his hand. That's the injury Gideon told me about. I understand there's no tendon or nerve damage. I was lucky. You were. Based on placement, you could have easily severed. She paused, then sighed. You would know that better than me. Maybe not. She grinned. I'm sorry. When I get nervous, I talk too much. She bounced back to her feet and crossed to a table by the window. Once there, she picked up a box and brought it to him. Inside were rows of crisp red apples. They're grown locally, she said. The last of the season. Delicious. He took one, but didn't bite into it. She took her seat again. Carter is very excited to meet you. He and Gideon are in Sacramento doing some shopping. She paused. You know about Carter, right? Gideon's son. Yes, he told me. Good. He's so interesting to have around. He does have occasional emotional outbursts, but I'm sure they're the result of hormones. For the most part, he's fun and enjoyable. He's responsible, too. He takes good care of Webster. She bit her lower lip. I'm sorry. You've never met him, and my observations have no value at this point. It's just your approval would mean so much. He frowned. My approval about what? The dog? The kid? I'm marrying your brother. Her voice was soft, tentative. Gabriel wanted to bolt for the door. She wanted his approval because she was joining the family? Was she kidding? Didn't she know he hadn't seen his parents in over a year and barely had any contact with his brother? They'd spoken more arranging his visit than they had in the past decade. I'm sure you two will be very happy, he said, hoping he sounded friendly instead of trapped. We will, she assured him. Gideon and I are well suited. We have a shared love of the town and Carter, of course. I was in the military, so I have a basic understanding of what he went through while he was abroad. We're both committed to our relationship in the family unit, and there is excellent sexual chemistry. She paused, her eyebrows drawing together. I shouldn't have mentioned the latter. That's more of a girlfriend topic. Despite the throbbing in his hand, the exhaustion clawing at him, he laughed. I can handle it, he told her. Just don't give me details. We're talking about my brother. She smiled. Yes, of course. I don't want to make you uncomfortable. The smile faded as she paused. Your parents will be arriving soon. I'd heard it's going to be one big family Christmas. He glanced down at his hand. A tiny spot of blood had seeped through the white gauze. No doubt what had caused Noelle to nearly faint. She was a lightweight, he thought humorously. She wouldn't last 30 seconds of his workday. Not that he would want her to see what he'd been dealing with on a daily basis for the past decade. Do you think you could tell me what they're like? It took him a second to realize Felicia meant his parents, and not his life as a trauma specialist in the Army. Excuse me. I'm not sure what you want to know. he admitted, returning his attention to his future sister-in-law. My parents were very traditional. Mom took care of business, and Dad told us what to do. And Dad told us all what to do. Felicia frowned. There's information in your statement, but I don't understand it. She waved her right hand. Well, I'm exceptionally well-schooled. My social cues aren't perfected. I'm mostly concerned that they bond with Carter and that they not tell Gideon he shouldn't marry me. Grandparents are hardwired to love their grandkids, he said, impressed with her bluntness. As for you, what's not to like? Thank you for the compliment. I could compile a list of my flaws, but I know that's not what you're asking for. She drew in a breath. I'm very nervous. Gideon always speaks of his mother fondly, but he has more ambivalence about his father. And he was the good son, Gabriel said dryly. You weren't? Gabriel didn't believe in dwelling on the past, as he wasn't going to start, and he wasn't going to start now. My father was a drill sergeant. Great for the military, but hell on kids. At least Gideon had always wanted to serve. Just don't let him boss Carter around. Felicia nodded. We have a routine that is beneficial to all of us. I'll be sure to protect that. He made the mistake of flexing his injured hand, then had to hold in a curse. Sorry. I should let you get back to work. What time do you head home? 5. She looked at him. You must be tired. I can drive you up the mountain now if you'd like. I'll be fine, he told her. I'll wander around town until you're ready. He gave her his cell number, then stood. It's nice to meet you, Felicia. My brother is a lucky man. Her expression softened, and what could only be described as love filled her eyes. I'm the lucky one. I'm glad to finally meet you. Her mouth curved. Whenever Gideon's in a bad mood, I remind him that he once shared a womb with you. He finds the image so uncomfortable, he's usually distracted from whatever is bothering him. Gabriel was a doctor, and even he didn't like to think about being in his mother's belly or sharing the space with his brother. You're a twisted woman. Like I said, Gideon chose well. She came around the desk and hugged him again. I'm so happy to have an extended family, she said, even if it is by marriage. This time he was more comfortable hugging her back. She wasn't anyone's definition of normal, but to his mind that concept was highly overrated. He had a feeling that she and his brother fit the way a couple was supposed to. He told himself to let his usual cynicism go and simply be happy for them. After all, it was that time of the year. He left her office and started walking through town. While the sky was clear, the temperature was cold enough to make him grateful for his bulky coat. He ignored the steady pain in his hand and occasional stumble. He could make a couple of hours. Once he was back at Gideon's, he would crash for a couple of days and wake up healed. At least that was the plan. The small downtown was bustling, even on a weekday afternoon. There were lots of stores, including a coffee place called Brouhaha. He stopped in for a trip to go and got a cupcake while he was at it. He wandered by the park, then saw Noel's store across the street. Not sure of his purpose, he crossed at the corner and walked toward the building. Ugh. I've been sleeping well these days, and yet you hearing me yawn doesn't sound like it. Not sure of his purpose, he crossed at the corner and walked toward the building. She was in the window, putting up a "Help Wanted" sign in front of the decorated Christmas tree. When she saw him, she smiled and waved, then motioned for him to come in. The store was big and well lit. There was more Christmas paraphernalia than any one person could want. Overhead beams stimulated an actual attic, and 2 or 3 train scents ran around the perimeter of the store. The air smelled of apples and cinnamon, and holiday music played in the background. A couple of women browsed, then looked like the world's largest teddy bear display. A couple of women browsed what looked like the world's largest teddy bear display. You found Felicia? Noel asked. I did, he chuckled. You're right, she's smart and beautiful. It's an annoying combination, but she's my friend, and I love her. Which I think makes me a superior person. Noel laughed as she spoke. Her blue eyes were bright and happy. Everyone had secrets, he thought, but he would guess hers were the garden variety. No dangerous ghosts, no great loss. This was what home was like. Regular people living their lives. Like nearly every soldier, he'd enjoyed knowing that ordinary life had existed somewhere. The difference was he didn't know if he could return to it or not. What's with the sign? He asked. The college hope let you down? You'll have no idea. When we got back, the store was closed. Both my salespeople had taken off to experience the fresh powder up on the mountain. I'm trying not to hope they fall and break an arm. Noelle studied the tall man in front of her. He'd been pale the last time she'd seen him, but now she would swear there was a gray cast to his skin. The shadows under his eyes seemed darker, and his mouth was pulled in what she would guess was pain. Are you okay? She asked. I'm fine. Jet-lagged. Felicia is going to take me back up the mountain when she gets off at 5. Noelle winced. That was 3 hours away. It's my fault, she told him. I shouldn't have let you drive me back to town. I wasn't going to have you drive yourself and crash. I might have made it. Might being the operative word. I'll be fine. No offense, but you don't look fine. Are you sure I can't drive you back? She held up her hand. Never mind. I already know what you're going to say. The worst part was, he was right. Until she got some more practice, she shouldn't be doing any winter driving outside of the plowed streets of town. But she couldn't leave the poor man swaying from exhaustion. Come on, she said, motioning for him to follow her. She led the way to the back room where she kept extra inventory and had a small break area with a table and 4 chairs. The table was actually salvaged from an estate sale in town. Noah loved the deep mahogany finish and the graceful legs, but what had most appealed to her was the writing etched into the top, as if the previous owner had spent long hours writing letters. Now she had pulled a blanket from the pile on one of the chairs and folded it into the shape of a pillow, then pointed to the sofa. It's more comfortable than it looks. Gabriel shook his head. I'm fine. He seemed more wary than interested in resting. You're practically unconscious. This is a Christmas store. I really can't be explaining this strange man slumped on the middle of my floor. She collected a second blanket. You don't have anything else to do until Felicia picks you up. Come on, no one will bother you here. You're coaxing me. I'm not some wild dog you're trying to rescue. She grinned. I can't help it. It's a girl thing. He grumbled something under his breath, then finally walked to the sofa and stretched and shrugged out of his jacket. He lay down. He was too tall to stretch out, but he was able to turn on his side, with his legs not too bunched. She draped the second blanket on top of him. You don't have to sleep. I won't. Of course not. I'll be back a little before 5. She walked out of the storage room and went to help her customers. They each bought 2 bears. A family with a toddler in a stroller came in and wanted to talk about the train set. 10 minutes later, they left with one, along with 3 holiday DVDs and an angel doll for their young daughter. Noelle tiptoed back into the storage room to check on her guest. Excuse me. Gabriel's eyes were closed, and he didn't stir as she approached. Good, she thought as she backed out toward the front of the store. He needed the rest. It was the best way to heal. While she'd never been cut as badly as he had, she knew something about what it took the body to recover. The afternoon passed quickly. Noelle was kept busy with customers and brainstorming sales and events. Important when one in retail, she thought. About 10 minutes before 5, she walked into the break room and stopped by the sofa. Gabriel didn't look as if he'd moved at all, but his color was better and some of the tension seemed to have faded. She put a hand on his shoulder. Hey, she began, her voice soft. It's nearly... He sat up instantly, his eyes wide with alarm. What? She kept her voice low and calm. It's Noelle. You're in my store. You've been sleeping. Yeah, you can see the slide of the page. I was just curious. Anyways, his dark blue gaze looked on her face. I cut my hand. I don't have a brain injury. Just checking, she told him as she straightened and walked to the refrigerator. She took out her pitcher of water and poured him a glass. Felicia phoned. She'll be here in about 10 minutes. He shifted until he was facing front. She didn't have to leave work early for me. Noelle handed him the glass. It's nearly 5. You've been asleep for 3 hours. Gabriel took the glass. I was tired, he admitted. Thanks for letting me crash. She turned one of the dining chairs toward him and sat down. As always, by the end of the day, her feet were ready for a break. It's the least I could do, she told him. You drove me down the mountain. Of course I could have done you in with an umbrella and chose not to, so maybe you owe me. Not likely. He drank the water. She tried not to notice how appealing a warm and sleepy man could be. His light brown hair was mussed, his expression relaxed. She was sure the weariness would return soon enough, but it was nice to see him without his guard up. For a second she allowed herself to think what it would be like to crawl up next to him, to feel his arms around her, and maybe snuggle on the sofa. She hadn't been in a relationship in what felt like a millennium, but was actually just 2 years. Long enough for her to be lonely, she thought. He finished the water, then set the empty glass on the table. On the table by the sofa. Thanks for all of this, he said, motioning to the blanket and sofa. You're right. I usually am. His mouth twitched. And modest. She shrugged. I live with the burden. The twitch turned into a smile. Are you thinking sainthood or just a tasteful plaque? We'll start with a plaque, she studied him. You're still exhausted. Jet lag? He nodded. I spent the past 2 days traveling. Where did you come from? Germany? There's a big hospital there. He looked like he was going to say more, but didn't. How'd you get back to the States? Military transport, part of the way. Then commercial. There was snow in Chicago. She looked at the lines around his eyes and mouth. Your hand is bothering you, she observed. Can I get you something for it? I'm fine. You're not. She didn't risk glancing at the bandage. You're forgetting I saw it earlier. How could I forget? You fainted. I didn't. I nearly fainted. There's a difference. He leaned back against the sofa, looking more relaxed. Not much of one. It tried to change the subject. One eyebrow rose. From how you acting like a macho idiot isn't going to help you get better. This would be your medical opinion? She ignored that. Pain is stress, and stress inhibits healing. I read a lot, she added, knowing she wasn't ready to tell him why she knew what she was talking about. Would it help if I said I wouldn't? No, you're so stubborn. Do I get a plaque too? She held up both hands. Fine, don't heal. Have an open wound forever. See if I can. He stood slowly. She was tall, but he was taller. He looked all manly in her storage room. She thought, out of place, but in a good way, if that was possible. I should go wait out front, he said, reaching for his jacket, so Felicia doesn't have to park. You up to this? She asked, thinking. That he hadn't seen his brother in a long time. Dealing with all of the emotional stuff, if it gets too much, tell Felicia you're still recovering from blood loss. She'll force you to go lie down. Oh, but if you do that, don't resist. She knows things. The amusement returned to Gabriel's eyes. What kind of things? You know, scary military stuff, like how to twist you up like a pretzel and make you scream like a little girl. I wouldn't have guessed that about her. It's true, she's not as good as Consuelo, but she has skills. He studied her for a second. She felt the heat of his gaze and hoped he was thinking how he'd like to rip her clothes off and have his manly way with her. Then he leaned close and kissed her on the cheek. Boop. Thanks for not running me through with the umbrella, and for the nap. Anytime, she murmured, holding in a sigh. Apparently, Gabriel found her very irresistible. Just her luck. She walked him to the front door and was about to say she hoped to see him again when an older lady called for help by the glass ornaments. Be right there, she said, and turned back to say something to Gabriel, but he was already gone. So that was chapter 2. I hope you guys really enjoyed that. Please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe, because I'm going to be making videos until the 25th of Christmas stories. I might go on to like the 31st, which would be like New Year's Eve, reading other stories or reading a new novel. I'll probably be looking up short Christmas stories that I can be reading on this channel when I finish this book. That will probably go up on December 16th, because there's 15 chapters in here, as I explained in the first video, which is like 40 minutes long. Anyway.